What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rays, and I'm back on the channel bringing some more synced guides your way. Now, with Season 1 Lamnant Dawn being available for all synced players currently, it's about time that we kind of like dive back into the game to get an idea as to how the PvE feels, how the PvP has changed, and also all the new stuff that's coming our way. Now, in this case, we're going to be discussing particularly the brand new runner for Season 1, and this is going to be Amelia. We're going to be having a look at her kit, we're going to be looking as to how good it is in PvE, we're going to be looking as to how it kind of develops into PvP, and then overall what my thoughts are and how it kind of like shifts the meta. If you enjoy this type of video and you want to see more from ourselves, then make sure to drop that like and subscribe so you can find your way back to the channel for more. But with all that said and done, what are we waiting for? Let's start getting right into it. So the first thing we should probably have a talk about when it comes to Amelia is going to be her kit. So let's have a quick look as to how kind of like intro animation, and then also have a description over on the right and just kind of work our way through that. So Lieutenant Amelia Escher is an ex-military intelligence officer who disappeared into the Meridian looking for her mother, a Shinar R&D executive. Emerging a year later with no answers and only fragments of memories to guide her, Amelia has joined Haven to find the truth behind the Meridian. Now when it comes to what her main ability, her main skill is compared to all the other grenades and all the other abilities that we've seen so far, is going to be the sticky bomb. Now if you've seen our previous videos talking about leaks when it came to Amelia, you probably already knew about this one, but now we have a little bit more information. We've also been able to play test her as well. With the sticky bomb, this is an explosive that sticks to most surfaces and detonates on enemy approach, so it's basically a proximity mine. This is your chuckable kind of claymore, if anything like that. It does have a little bit more of a functionality to it, but essentially how it works is that you have a smaller arc compared to grenades, which is a little bit upsetting because it does make it very difficult for you to be able to throw this out in some cases. But what it does is it throws it a short distance, it then sticks to the ground, it has a beep to it, it also has a red kind of area effect, so it does become a little bit known in certain locations, and that's something that I will be discussing very, very shortly. But essentially this explosive does high amounts of damage, and if any kind of enemies walk into it, whether it's PvE threats or whether it's PvP threats, if they walk into this, it's pretty much going to be a massive knock, or at least a massive amount of damage coming their way. So you definitely need to be on the alert for these kind of things, especially if you know in Amelia it does exist in the field. Now this bomb does have a little bit more to it, which we'll get into when it comes to the perks, because everything to do with her perks is actually to do with her skill pretty much. We haven't really seen this too much when it comes to other runners. We've seen like one perk maybe that kind of goes towards your perk, towards your skill, sorry. So like for example, Park gets, if you hit enemies with your chain bomb, any enemies that you've hit with those that have got a shock affliction from that chain bomb will reduce your LMG recoil. Deadcut is able to, if he gets set on fire, he's able to increase his own movement speed, you know, things like that. We have things that kind of tie in with other runner skills, but we've never seen anything that is pretty much a whole kit dedicated to a skill before, and that is what Amelia brings to the table. Now, in terms of her perks, the first one we do have a look at is going to be Energy Conversion. What this does is when you eliminate Prime Nanos or getting a runner headshot, this boosts your skill cooldown speed. So this means we're going to consistently get this skill back all the time. It's going to be really good at being able to place multiple mines down. We're going to be able to cover a lot of area, especially if we are able to get up there and we're starting to be able to get into the combative side of things, so we can consistently keep getting this skill down. Now, I will talk about a couple of PvP loadouts that I do think works really, really well with Amelia, especially with her perk. And you can essentially just have almost unlimited the amount of mines. As to how this kind of works, it's kind of crazy, especially if you do get into those firefights. Now the last of the perks that we do need to have a look at is going to be Firebomb. You're most notably going to have this pop up in PvE rather than PvP, but essentially how this works is that you can shoot a sticky mine and this will cause it to explode, and then it will also deal fire affliction damage. So this is going to set your targets on fire. This is going to be great for PvE with affliction based builds. We also have something if you're going into PvP. Let's just say that because it does have a detonation timer on it if an enemy walks up towards this sticky bomb. If you feel like that's not fast enough for you and you are already watching over the area, you can shoot the mine and it will instantly detonate it, and it will allow it to do maximum amount of damage, and it will also be able to do that fire affliction, setting them on fire, meaning they really do have to run away rather than being able to engage in that firefight. Overall, on paper, Amelia isn't bad. It's everything to do with her skill. It gives her nothing else when it comes to mobility. It gives her nothing else when it comes to any kind of other combat scenario. It's all about being able to have your skill available and always being able to have it active. So let's have a talk about her kit when it comes to PvE. Well, how this one kind of works is that you're able to chuck your mine onto enemy nanos, and they're able to transport that around with them. It's not like it sticks them in place or anything like that, but after a couple of seconds this will then detonate, and it will do a decent area of effect, decent chunk of damage as well. It's actually, it cannot be understated as to how much damage this mine actually does. So if you are looking for an offensive based kind of like ability in terms of like an AoE kind of grenade, like a typical explosion, then this one definitely could be for you. It's actually a really decent ability in that sense, but you're not really going to necessarily use it too much for the proximity effect, but in terms of like being able to chuck it down on the floor preemptively and then wait for the enemies to walk over it. Now obviously there are a couple of objectives inside of Season 1 where that does come into place, because we do have the hacked exchange, the way we have to kind of like defend those over a period of time, and we can actually use this to great effect over on those ones. It means that you can guard one location with your mine, or you start focusing on another spawn with your actual gun of choice. So Amelia is pretty good at being able to do area effect, she's pretty good with explosive, and she's pretty good at being able to take out large chunks of enemies, especially if you do manage to plant it on, and you can still use this mine to great effect on tyrants, because you can chuck this on them, and then you can actually start shooting it. If you plant it perfectly on their weak point as well, it means that you're able to, with your first bullet, being able to detonate that mine, and then every single subsequent bullet is then going to be able to go into that weak point, dealing even more damage on top of it. So you do have a few ways of being able to play Amelia, but to be honest with you, I think there are better runners when it comes to it. It's a little bit awkward at being able to chuck the mine currently. I think the way the arc of the mine is a little bit too short in that sense, because if you want to get it a certain distance in front of you, you do have to look pretty much straight up, and that allows you to be able to then arc it and be able to get some decent range on this. So I would hope that in the future they do change that, because I would like to see us be able to throw this a little bit further. Otherwise it's going to be a close range ability, and while you're not going to be receiving any kind of friendly fire from this ability or anything like that, it would just be a nice quality of life change so that we can chuck it even further. So that's PvE, so how does she kind of work when it comes to PvP? Well, actually she works out a little bit better in that scenario. The current meta before Amelia turned up, so the Season 1 meta, was all about rushing down your opponents by using the baller, and that technically hasn't changed too much when it comes to PvP in terms of Nerva runs. But what Amelia does do is she creates space. She's very good in a team composition, being able to stop any kind of like quick advances or anything like that. If you are being pushed upon, especially with the new movement mechanics that we do have with the nano leaps and the hyper jumps and all this kind of thing, you know, Amelia is great at being able to go notice that this is coming right at her, chuck the mine straight either at her feet or on a close wall or something like that, and then that will be able to like punish those enemies for coming in close. I have seen this ability do upwards of 80 damage, which is kind of crazy considering Park was already overpowered in terms of like his gadget. He was pretty much just a gadget person, and that was able to do 33 points of damage, and that was considered to be one of the better abilities that existed in this game. So the fact that we have a mine, which to be fair does not track enemies or anything like that like Park's, but being able to do over almost 3 times the amount of damage is kind of crazy. This means that if an enemy does push into an Amelia, they can have their ability, they can place it straight down, and they can do upwards of 80 points of damage, stripping off pretty much all of their armor, and then almost half of their HP bar if they do have legendary health and armor. Now outside of that position, that's where Amelia starts to get a little bit on the bad side, because her ability is all about defense. So you can't chuck this far enough to be able to engage any enemies, you can't chuck this far enough to be able to go on the offense in that kind of situation. You can use this to create space, which is really nice. You can use this effectively to be able to defend harvesters. It pretty much cuts off a choke point, which is really nice. And there's plenty of audio cues, there's plenty of visual cues for the enemy team to know where this kind of is, but it's still more than enough to have that as a deterrence to make sure that they don't go through that certain choke point or anything like that. There's ways to be able to play around this ability, and I do think it's pretty decent in that sense. Now obviously you can pair this up with a nice PvP loadout, ideally because her whole kit is around being able to have that ability active and being able to chuck it out when you need it. We kind of want to go into ability kind of mods in that sense. You can go for being able to go for your armor, you can go for ways of being able to repair that from being able to pop a med kit, you can go into ways to be able to get that back from being able to knock down a runner or something like that. But me personally, I think currently how the ability works, and the fact that you can get your cooldown back ridiculously fast from being able to land headshots, which you should be doing in PvP anyway, is the idea to go for port 1, go for offensive charge. So once you knock down a rival, this then gives you half of your charge back. So pretty much after you've landed a few headshots and you've used this ability, you're pretty much getting your cooldown back straight away, so you can pop another mine down. And because of the insane amount of damage and because of the space it creates, you can use this as a way of being able to retreat. It does give you a couple of options. On top of that, port 2 then gives us a way of being able to either retreat faster or be able to get into the thick of it faster, because skill thrill allows us to be able to move an ADS faster after using our skill. Once again, really nice synergy with our skill. Port 3 is going to be blood sacrifice. This gives us a way of being able to, after we've knocked down a runner, which we should be doing for offensive charge, it allows us to restore some of our companion nano's HP. The idea is that I'm going to be going for a crusher. To be fair, most of the time blood sacrifice, unless you're going up against a lower skilled player that doesn't realise that abilities and throwing your melee will instantly kill your nano, you're not necessarily going to have this active all the time. As you can see, I was going back and forth between a Crusher and a Guardian. Guardian seems to be the main way of being able to go about it. Yeah, if you use Blood Sacrifice combination with your Guardian or with your Crusher or something that's a bit more defensive or aggressive, you can get your HP back up, which is really, really nice. Tier 4, Testudo is pretty good, obviously, if you're going for a Guardian Shield. If you are going for Crusher allows us to be able to have that one. But if you are then going for Crusher, because we're ideally going for the movement speed, Armed and Dangerous is probably going to be the better way of being able to go, because this allows us to deal even more damage to rival companions and prime nanos when they're in nano arm mode, which we'll be getting with that movement speed buff. So that's really nice of being able to take down Guardians even faster, etc. So, you know, there's a few options that you can put into port 4. Me personally, I just quickly swapped over to a Crusher, tried out a match or two, and it worked really nicely. Obviously you do want to match this to whatever nano you are currently rocking. And like I said, when it comes to, in terms of like the best nanos to be able to use, Crusher is going to be one of the better ones, especially with the introduction of Hyper Jump. It allows you to be able to get even more distance. You already had good height in the Crusher Leap in the first place, so being able to have your Hyper Jump on top of that is really, really nice. And then alternatively, you can go for your Guardian, which is going to be your Gun Shield. Obviously, this is a little bit nerfed compared to how the abilities now kind of work, because if you do pop your Gun Shield out and someone does cast their ability, and then the abilities are now doing enough to be able to take down prime nanos in one single go, then you will instantly lose your Gun Shield, so that's something that you do need to be able to be aware of, and something ready for you to take into the Meridian. Overall, in terms of like where I would rank it in the tier list, I don't think she's necessarily as good as Park. I still think Park is pretty much top dog when it comes to PvP, but I do think that Amelia has a place in the current meta. I wouldn't necessarily say that she's like meta defining in that case, but like I said, she is pretty much like a counter to every single aggressive player that does exist inside of Synced, and we're now going to have to start working our way around it. We're going to have to start thinking, is there an Amelia on that team? Are we able to push as aggressively as we can do? And this might be enough for us to be able to move away from the SMG meta along to the AR meta, giving us a little bit of distance when it comes to firefights. But there you go, that pretty much wraps up everything as to my current experience with Amelia. I will still be testing a few things out. I will be getting a few bits more of info as to how the headshots kind of factor in, how quickly can we get our cooldown back, do we actually need something to help us out in that kind of regard. There's a few things that I do want to test about, and especially with like the damage range and everything like that. But just know that you can unlock her for free at level 28 in the Battle Pass. You do not need to get the paid version for this either to be able to get access to her, so you will get this regardless as long as you are playing through and completing your jobs, but at level 28 you will be able to get her for free, which we didn't get to see that with Park or with Layla. Alternatively, there are two other ways that you can get Amelia unlocked. You can unlock her for 600 Imperia, or I believe it's also 600 Tuxbucks, if you do go into Mel's shop, and you can buy her there just in her base form. And there is also another bundle, which I believe is around about $34.99 when it came to like GBP. I believe it's around about the same when it comes to Euros, but that will also give you access to this really nice skin unlock, and it does give you a few other things as well. So if you are looking to be able to put into the game, that is a bundle that is available to you, and it definitely is one of the better kind of skins. You definitely can change it. It does come with this as standard, and honestly it is absolutely beautiful. It is definitely one of the better skins that currently exist in the game, but obviously it is locked behind that paywall, so you do you feel free to be able to dictate as to if that's worth it to you. But there you go, that pretty much wraps it up on the video. Thank you so much for making your way to the end of the video. Massive thank you to the Babylonian family, as always, for their continued support. It really does help the channel out. And this is the part where I want to be able to hear from you. This is where the interactive part. I want you to tell me in the comment section down below if you've already unlocked Amelia, and what are your thoughts about her so far. Do you think that she is better than I'm making her out to be? Do you think she is more PvE or PvP oriented? And do you think that she has an impact in this current meta? Of course, if you did enjoy this video and you want to see more from us when it comes to Synced, make sure to drop that like and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. And that just leaves me to say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on the next video.